girls. Hi, Annie. There you go. Hermione. Hi everyone, Janey here. Welcome back to my garden. It's a beautiful, beautiful fall day. The foliage is starting to change around me, especially on this Chinese pistache tree, and it is just a glorious day. So I usually start off my day in the garden checking on the chickens. Like I told you before, one of our chickens passed away, Maisie, the blue one, and I was so worried about these other two girls, but they are doing so well, and they're even laying me some eggs. Not every day, but pretty often. It's really fun.
Good morning. Good morning, girls. Good job, girls. You're doing so good.
One of the big tasks that we've been working on this fall is amending as much of our soil as we can with compost. We have been getting deliveries from the local landscape supply, and we've also been going to our local dump where they have certified compost, and so we've been able to get that for a really cheap price. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of compost. And when I say that my garden doesn't smell the best these days, let's call that an understatement. I feel like that there is a layer of compost on absolutely everything, including Monty, including myself whenever I'm working out in the garden. And here is my gorilla cart that we use to transport the compost from one area to another, and it's constantly just covered with compost. So the first thing I wanted to do today is clean off this gorilla cart as much as I can. That's one of the things I really like about these guys, is they're really easy to clean out. Because I am going to be using this gorilla cart for my big project today, which is in-bed vermicomposting, putting worm beds in each of my garden beds that you can see right there behind me. Now that the gorilla cart was somewhat clean, I started getting together the supplies I needed for today's project, including this giant bag of worms that thankfully I put in this plastic bin because they had escaped. And if I hadn't put it in this plastic bin, that could have been an absolute disaster. I also got some kitchen scraps, and then I started opening these wire garbage cans that I got from Amazon that I am going to use as my in-bed worm beds. I'll be linking all the supplies that I got for this project in the description down below, but I do want to say that a lot of the things that I got for this project can be purchased locally, like the worms, or can be DIY'd for very cheaply, like these wire garbage bins that I got off Amazon. I feel like I could easily DIY these with chicken wire, but I wanted to show different options. I was taught this method of in-bed worm composting by my friend Angela Jed from Growing in the Garden. I actually had her on my podcast so that we could talk about this. I'll link that podcast in the description down below as well. But if you don't know about Angela from Growing in the Garden, she is so great. She's so informative. She is an Arizona gardener, so she specializes in warm weather gardening, but she is just so smart. She is such a smart gardener, and I learn so much from her. So what Angela taught me was, first of all, to layer the bottom of your worm beds with a layer of shredded up cardboard that you're going to wet down. So what I'm doing is I have all these extra cardboard boxes. Of course, who doesn't have tons and tons of cardboard boxes laying around these days? So I just spent some time shredding up, basically ripping these cardboard boxes into tiny pieces to be the bottom layer or the bedding layer of my worm bins. Ooh, I don't think that's yours. I don't think that's yours. Come here. I don't think that's your ball. That's not your ball. It's a girl's ball. It's not yours. Where's your ball? Where's your ball? Huh? Where's your ball? Come. Come sit. Sit. Over here. I swear, this dog is smarter than he looks. He knows he's not supposed to get the girls' soccer balls, and he probably has learned that I will play with him and toss his ball if he does something that he's not supposed to do. So that's all right. That's okay. He needs some attention, and this gives us some time to work on some training. We have started some pretty intense dog training. It's in class once a week, and then there's lots of homework to work on. And this week, what we're working on is getting him to sit on command just to my left side. So unfortunately, I have taught him this whole past year to sit right in front of me, which is fine, but it's hard to build off of that. So what we're working on is relearning for him to sit on my left side, which he's not a fan of because he thinks he's doing the command, and I feel really bad for him. But we're working on it with the toys, with the ball, and then we're working on it with treats as well. So after just a few delays, I was finally able to get all my supplies together for my in-bed worm bins, starting with this giant bag of 1,000 red wiggler worms. Red wigglers are supposed to be the best worms for vermicomposting, really, and in-bed vermicomposting. They do kind of creep me out. Yes, I will admit they definitely do creep me out, especially when I see them crawling like this. It's gross, but I am super excited to have these in my garden because I know how beneficial it is to have worms in your garden, just for breaking everything down and then also for adding so many amazing nutrients to your garden bed. And everything in a garden starts with soil. So that's really what I'm focusing on with the compost and with getting these worm bins in the garden beds, even though this looks like something right out of a scary movie. So your first layer for your worm bins is going to be shredded up cardboard, just like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a couple inches of shredded up cardboard in the bottom of your bins, and you're going to wet that. That's going to be the bedding for your worms. Then you're going to add some of your worms and top it off with some food, with some kitchen scraps. You can see I have a lot of veggies here. I have some old peppers, some old eggplant that I didn't get to, some leftover lettuce, and carrots that the girls didn't eat in their lunches. And this is going to be the food for the worms. I am going to be topping off the kitchen scraps. I'm going to be topping off the beds with some kitchen scraps every week, about an inch a week. And then each worm bin is going to get a couple inches of wood chips that I have in a bucket just to the left of these wire bins. Now, Angela did tell me that you didn't even technically need bins. You could just dig a hole into your garden bed and put your cardboard in there, put your worms, put your kitchen scraps, and put your wood wood chips, but having a contained bin lets you know where to put some more of your food scraps, and then also lets you know where to harvest the worm castings, which is basically the worm poop, but that is the gold. That is what you want, and once you're able to harvest the worm castings, you can spread that throughout the garden bed, and your garden bed is just going to grow like crazy. So I wanted to give you all a quick look at the no-till beds that I have in my backyard. These 8 beds are not raised beds. They are just no-till beds, which basically means I'm planting directly into the ground. These metal beds around them are purely just to hold the compost in place. And what I do is every year I add about 6 inches of compost, just kind of to top the area off and give it a little bit more nutrients. And that's what Jason and I did this past week, is we topped everything off with a good 6 inches of compost, which I'm really excited about. We didn't clean out every single bed because some of the beds still had some blooms in them. Some of the beds still had some really pretty stuff in them. Some of the beds I'm going to leave some things in, like this bed right here. This bed has some dahlias that my friend Kate gave to me. Look at how beautiful these white dahlias are. These are called Maryland's White. And then this bed also has some Dusty Miller that I planted from seed that I use all the time as fillers in my flower arrangements, and this is a perennial for me, so I could just leave it there. I have some more dahlias that I'm going to leave, and then I do have these gorgeous calla lilies that were sent to me that I love, and I need to transplant them, but they're happy and safe in this spot right here, so I'm just going to leave it there. And then finally, the last thing that I'm leaving in these no-till beds is, of course, my garlic that I just planted. I just planted this whole kind of square with garlic cloves, and they're already popping up a little bit, which is nice. That means they're hopefully getting rooted in and will be growing really well over the winter season. And then one more thing I wanted to point out before I got started installing my worm bins is the front of my greenhouse, or the plantings around my greenhouse. You're going to notice this behind me when I'm working, so I just had to point this out. The difference, how lopsided and bad the left side looks and how good the right side looks. So first of all, my iceberg rose standards, Jason had pruned the one on the left and not the one on the right, so a little lopsided. And then when we were adding the compost, somebody must have nicked a drip irrigation line to the left pot, and it hadn't gotten water for a couple weeks, and we just noticed, and yeah, you can see the damage that was done to it. So that's what's going on around the greenhouse. Not looking its best these days, but everything's healthy, everything's fine. I think that the olive topiaries are going to be totally fine, and the annuals were coming out in a little bit anyway. All right, let's finally get to the main project for the day, putting worm bins in each of these no-till beds. And I should say, I wasn't planning on putting one in every single bed. First off, the bed with the dahlias and the Dusty Miller, there's just too much stuff in there right now, so I'll have to install my worm bin at a later date. I also don't think I have enough worms. I only got 1,000 worms, and per Angela, you want to put about 300 to 600 worms in each bed. So I'm going to put probably 300 in each bed, a little bit less than 300 in each bed, and maybe stop after 4 or 5 beds, something like that. And then as these worms reproduce, I will take some of them and I will transplant them into new beds. So the goal is over the next couple months, I'll have in-bed worm beds in every single no-till bed and every single raised bed that I have around the garden. that what you're barking at, buddy? I don't blame you. Is that what you're barking at? What was that thing? So I've been wanting to do garden bed vermicomposting for a while. I've actually been wanting to do vermicomposting for a while. I took a class on it when I was training for my Master Gardener certification, and it just seemed so fantastic. I was really excited about it, except for if you do regular vermicomposting where you have a worm bin and you can store that worm bin maybe like in your garage, or some people will store it underneath their kitchen sink. What can happen is, because those worms are in a contained area, if it's not perfect, if you don't take care of that worm bin perfectly, like feed them enough food, feed them the right food, have the right temperature, what can happen is either the worms can die or they can escape. And even the presenter in my Master Gardener's class was telling me about situations when worms escaped out of her worm bin and basically were all over her kitchen floor. And that kind of just creeped me out, just a little too much. So unfortunately in that class, I didn't learn too much about in garden bed vermicomposting. And when I heard Angela talk about it from growing in our garden, I thought, okay, this solves all my problems. I still get the benefits of vermicomposting, but the worms are in the garden bed already. So if they're not happy with the food they're getting or not happy with the temperature, they have the ability to move around the garden bed as they see fit. And I'll never have to deal with worms escaping a bin that I have to clean up, which was really, truly the thing that was holding me back from vermicomposting. I actually purchased a vermicomposter and have yet to use it because I just couldn't bring myself to do it out of fear of messing up and having worms all over the floor or all over the composter that I didn't want to deal with. Now, I know that that's worst case scenario and lots of people use vermicomposters and don't have that issue, but I just really didn't want to clean up escaped worms. So when I learned from Angela about the in garden bed vermicomposting, I just thought, okay, this is the best of both worlds. And this gives me the opportunity to still have a vermicomposting system so I can get all the benefits from vermicomposting for my garden, but it also protects me from having that situation where I am cleaning up or dealing with the worms, dealing with the creepy crawlers, because I know myself. I just know myself, and I know I'm not going to handle that situation very well. Whoa! Girls! Girls! Come quick!
Oh my.
I mean, what are we supposed to do with this? Hello! Oh my God. Are you kidding?
Stop, bros. Goodbye. Have a good day.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Look, there's another one. Right here. There, it just landed in the airport area. Yeah. What is going on today?
It's hot air balloon.
It's hot air balloon day.
It's National Hot Air Balloon Day today.
It must be a really good day for hot air balloons. Too funny.
Where's that other one going?
What other one?
That one back there.
Oh, geez. Probably to come land over here. That's hilarious.
One should land in our yard.
No. And it'll smash my plants.
I know.
What about on the driveway?
They can land in the driveway, but look at the balloon falls over.
Where?
Well, that was unexpected today, huh?
Yeah.
I think by the end of all of this, we had 6 hot air balloons go directly over our property or go very, very close to our property, which was so funny. And it was really, really neat. The girls loved it. Monty didn't like it so much, but it made the day really interesting. We must have just been right in the path of the hot air balloons, like with the weather or something like that. There's a town next to us called Winters, and I know that they have a hot air balloon kind of takeoff space because Jason and I actually took a hot air balloon ride one time. We didn't end up coming over by this area, but that's where we took off. So it just must have been the wind was taking it right over to our area. So kind of fun. Anyway, back to the in-garden bed vermicomposting. I did want to talk about the benefits of garden bed vermicomposting because there are just so many. Not only can it improve your soil quality and increase your plant growth, but it can actually also even reduce pests, which I didn't know this until I started looking into it. So first off, for soil quality, vermicompost, it improves your soil structure. You have those little worms that are digging around in your soil and eating all the stuff that you have in there. So if you have really compacted soil or poor soil, those worms are going to dig around and increase the aeration, create little pockets, which is exactly what you want for good soil. It also will increase water retention because of the worm castings that the worms leave. That is going to increase the organic matter in your soil. And anytime you increase organic matter, you will increase the soil's water retention, which is really important for keeping your plants hydrated. The better water retention your soil has, the happier your plants will be on really, really hot days. So it's super important for those of us who live in hot environments. Vermicomposting in your garden beds can also increase your soil's pH. It can improve the electrical conductivity, which is really important when you get down to the micro and macronutrients that help the roots grow and the plant grow. And then again, it also improves the organic matter content with all of those beautiful black gold worm castings that the worms leave. So for plant growth, vermicompost can increase the vitality and increase the growth rate of those plants just because there's so many nutrients that come from the worms and from the worm castings. Something that I didn't know that I found really interesting though is if you're growing things, edibles like vegetables, having in garden bed vermicompost can actually improve the flavor profiles of those edibles, which I just thought was so interesting. It also can reduce plant shock, transplant shock, and it also can reduce plant pathogens, which is great. Another really interesting thing that I learned about vermicomposting or worm castings in general is that it does have a pest control aspect to this, and I didn't know that. So apparently worm castings contain something called chitinase, which can help dissolve the chitin in insect exoskeletons. So basically the thing that helps develop the outer shell of these pests. So even soft-bodied insects have some chitin in them. And so if the pests are come across something like worm poop that is going to basically dissolve its exoskeleton, the pests aren't going to want to be there and they're going to go away. And so it's weird, it sounds odd, but it's actually a fabulous extra benefit to using worm castings and vermicomposting in general. And then finally, the other benefit is that it's a really environmentally friendly way to recycle your kitchen scraps instead of them ending up in the landfill. Now, it's kind of funny because I have chickens that are supposed to take care of this as well, but my chickens apparently are very fancy and they only like certain food, like watermelon and honeydew, the sweet stuff apparently. So I'm hoping that my worms are not as picky as my chickens are and I can give them a wider array of my kitchen scraps. So I was able to make 6 worm bins out of the supplies that I had today, which I thought was pretty great. Again, I will link all of the supplies that I used in the description down below, as well as Angela's channels and her website in the description down below, because she really is so informative. So all I have to do for these worm bins is every week come out and give them about 1 inch of kitchen scraps to feed them. And Angela says that you'll be able to tell because the level will drop and then you'll know it's time to feed them a little bit. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope I inspired you to try vermicomposting yourself, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.